Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody out there can hear me. How's it going out there? I've got a special guest with me again today, Alan. We're talking about some Bitcoin, focus on Bitcoin today, some metrics around Bitcoin, some of the selling that we've been seeing lately. And then Alan had some thoughts about since he's of course located in China, he's got some thoughts about some potential opportunities in some Chinese EV makers. We all know that Tesla has been on a tear until it came back. Now it's pulled back into this area of support that I have. So we'll talk a little bit about what's going on with Tesla. I will highlight here, it's clearly coming right back into this peak right here. And I've got this uptrend channel, so potentially some opportunities there. But Alan wanted to look at some other opportunities in Chinese EV makers. And then we've got a lot of things to talk about related to some things that have been floating around with, it looks like some selling in the Asian sessions of Bitcoin price, some thoughts around that as well. But welcome everybody. And as usual, neither Alan or I are licensed financial advisors. So please, if you do your own research, if you were to buy or sell things blindly based on information you hear us discuss here today, you're going to end up losing all of your money and living in a van by the river with Doge and Bollenhover here. But good morning, everybody. Let's stop the share. Let's say hi to Alan. Good morning, Alan. How are you doing?
Hi, Brandon. Good morning and good evening from Dalian. It's been a curious time here since we last spoke. We've gone from lovely sunny days to -12, and then in 2 days we went back up 20 degrees centigrade. So it's more volatile than the Bitcoin chart here. It's crazy. So so not quite sure if to sort of stick your head out the window in the morning to work out what to wear at the moment. So
yeah,
crazy, but no, it's been lovely. Sun's been out and about, enjoying myself. I have a few pictures to share later. So it's been good, and obviously interesting. We've moved to Tuesday and the charts are up when we're talking today. So let's see if we can put a stop to all that bullishness.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get rid of that bullishness. So yeah, in Texas, my phone's telling me it's 38 degrees this morning, which is a little bit crazy. But you know, this time of year it does get chilly every once in a while. But it's nice, and it's going to be a brisk day today for us for once. It'll probably warm up. So for us, it'll be 38 degrees. Let me look at the weather forecast right now. It'll be 38 degrees in the morning, and then by the afternoon, yeah, 60 degrees. So, you know, welcome to Texas.
They really do cold there, Brandon.
Yeah. So real fast before we get rolling, I wanted to, obviously we see Bitcoin's getting a little bit of a bounce this morning. I'm going to share my initial thoughts. I'm going to turn over to Alan here. I did want to share some things. Let's see here. All right. So for my chart, obviously, we were looking at this trend line right here that I've got highlighted, and then we broke down from that, right, when the big sell-off came right back into that area, and then we've been consolidating below that area. I have this key area of support I've been watching and buying into and trying to play these little pops, but this area of support is between, if I look up the monthly chart, I'm going to show you guys what I'm looking at, and I think this is the I don't know why I moved this bottom one. This bottom one might be a weekly level. Basically, this is the entire range for the month of September, right? The closing and opening and closing price. Opening price was 47. Closing price was down here at 43. I've moved that bottom support up to 44. I don't know why on this. I don't exactly know why, but if we open that range up, that's the entire monthly range for open and close price of September. And then we got that strong rebound in October. And so far, as far as I'm concerned, on a very long time frame, we've come back in to test this area, this range, and that's the area that I've been really watching closely for opportunities. Now, for me, we would like to see us break out of here, but we don't really get too terribly bullish until we break 53,000, which happens to be a weekly level. The 120-day SMA is around there, and a bunch of other levels around there. So much like back in summer, what I'm looking for is this potential for us to do a kind of a false breakout. You can see this trend line I have here, and I've got this, you know, basically the same trend line. So we could have a pattern where we put a false breakout in here, and then Alan and I could be the signal for killing this breakout, right? So maybe you and I, Alan, are the ones that are gonna cause we're the Wyckoff engineers. We go live. That's what's happening, guys. I don't know if y'all know this, but it's Alan and I going live every time we want to tamp down the markets. We just go live at all these points right here. That's what's going on. So that's what I'm. That's
like
what I'm
an
personally.
an amazing record of dumping the market.
Yeah. So, but we're into Heath level daily resistance right now. That's that little white line I've got right there, and we've got some trend line. This is the main trend line that I'm watching. So what I'm waiting to see, like over here, we didn't really get a good retest and resumption. So you got a big breakout, and then it started to curl over immediately, and it never found a level that it got a bounce off of. It broke out, curled over, and came right back down. So there was never any really good solid entries because it never confirmed support anywhere. So what we're watching closely is to see if we get that same breakout pattern, and if it comes right back down without giving us without telling us, confirming that it's going to hold some area of support. And that's what I'm going to be watching closely for on this potential breakout. Now, on the topic of the day, I've got a bunch of stuff in my way here. Hold on. I do want to share this. I tweeted this out. I haven't dug into it a whole lot, I'll be honest with you. But the Root posted a thread. But basically, what I found interesting was Huobi stopped, trading in China. And you can see here this announcement from September 26th. So they announced that they're going to retire the existing mainland China's user accounts, right? So as I was telling Alan this morning, I imagine there are probably millions of users in mainland China that probably had maybe a small amount of Bitcoin that they had bought, right? And they were and when the announcement came out that they're banning Bitcoin or whatever, maybe they just didn't think about it or didn't really care to do much with it. They thought they'd leave their coins on exchange. But when Huobi comes out and says that they're going to comply and retire mainland user accounts, and that may have caused some users to finally log in and figure out what to do with their coins or get to sell them or move them or whatever. But the main thing is that you can see right here, ever since March 2nd, 2020, coins have been on a terminal decline. That was like right before the big capitulation event pre-COVID. They've been on a huge decline off of Huobi, the exchange, right? Which is the main, as far as I understand, it's one of the main exchanges that mainland China users used. So we had this big pop in coins on exchange, and then this drawdown. And then ever since the big sell-off, so it kind of flatlined to the bull market. And then even when China announced that they're banning mining, right after that is when we kind of flatlined. But the summer sell-off was a lot of coins coming off of that particular exchange. And so I don't know if this is what that is exactly, but what I want to highlight is we're getting really close to the bottom. So if most of the sell pressure that we've seen that have been stunting this bull market has come from users exiting this exchange, well, we're getting close to, as of right now, there's very advertised by Huobi. Now, they may have more wallets that we don't know about, but as of right now, from what the data aggregators know about, we're down to 30-something thousand coins on exchange from nearly 400,000. So potentially, we're getting close to the end of sell pressure from this one exchange. That's kind of my main takeaway from all this, is that regardless of the reason for it, this one exchange has been having a pretty precipitous decline in coins on exchange, which once this finishes exhausting, then this exchange really can't provide that much sell pressure anymore. So perhaps something to watch for. Maybe today they dump from 30,000 to zero on the 38,000 coins to zero, since Alan and I went live and we tanked the market down. That's still enough coins probably to tank the market, down to, I don't know, 20K or so. All right, so those are my thoughts. But I know Alan also. Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, I put a comment on Twitter with regards to this because I think, there's been a drawdown. You'd expect it, and you saw a bigger drawdown at the start of the year, and China switched off the payment gateway, so it's been difficult to move anything in and out. So you need to be banking off the mainland, whether it's Hong Kong or elsewhere. And I think anything I'd say is, obviously, if you look at CoinMarketCap, the daily volume traded is 600 and something thousand Bitcoin. So I always point people just to say there's always context. If 50,000 Bitcoin have drawn down over a period, that's quite a lot. But in terms of the daily volume, it's a sort of rounding error in Bitcoin. It's now such a huge market in terms of volume traded every day. I still suspect that this is all a big red herring. You've got a lot of time overlap. Crypto's 24/7. You know, you can go to the West Coast in the US and, you know, obviously I'm up 8 a.m., have a look, daily close. Yeah, GMT +8. Get the daily close. Crypto tends to chop around sideways, but you know, part of the US is still operating, and you know, do all these Chinese, this is working hours, this analysis. So everyone's supposed to be, whilst they're at work, is selling their Bitcoin. I don't know. That doesn't stack up for me. It just seems like a convenient answer at the moment to what is a market that's very complex. So you can see we've now got maturity in this market. We've got futures markets. We've got all kinds of derivatives. We've got funds involved. We've got all kinds of things that were not there 4 or 5 years ago. I think, you know, I just think people are looking for nice, simple explanations for everything. And, you know, I think there's way more going on now in this market than the Chinese selling off a bit of Bitcoin because they need to get their RMBs back at the moment. So I saw that before it became a sort of story. I saw the original tweet. I think it was a plug for the original, you know, quant site that was running the story, just saying, here's another one of our great charts. Can you see what's happening? And I almost tweeted, I sort of drafted it. I thought, I'll get ready for some blame China story that's going to come straight afterwards. So that was my thoughts. Anyway, it was just, it's interesting, but I'm not buying that. This is not Forex. The exchanges are open 24 hours. And we know there's a vast amount of automated trading now, algorithms trading. People are programming what they want to do. You know, and how do we explain all these other things we've seen, like Wyckoff patterns that are incredibly accurate, that et cetera, et cetera. There's correlation intraday and intra-week to the stock market now. There's, you know, which is the US market. It's correlating with, and the 10-year since March, 10-year yield is highly correlated to Bitcoin. So I'm just not sure. I get the original one. I do get April and May because there would have been an exodus then. Because if China's clamping down on all the routes to get your money out, you get your money out. You know, that's obvious, but I'm not sure now. I mean, I think you don't hear much about crypto here at the moment. You know, it's a non-subject. So anyway, enough of me rattling on about that. Have a look at see if we can get this up. So this was just my point on, check this has come up okay, Brandon. So
Good.
Excellent. So tech's still behaving. So that's something, but you can see the volume, 24-hour volume here is now, I mean, these numbers are crazy now in crypto. Quoted on CoinMarketCap. So a little bit of my start with a picture has been my theme. So this is my walk this afternoon. So walked right up the hills behind where we live. So it's just a view out over Dalian Bay. This is the Donggang development. Sort of cut this picture because we can see we haven't finished yet. It's a nice piece over on the right-hand side. This is what's sort of creeping towards the end here, as this whole area is developed. So this is all reclaimed land. I guess this would have formerly been the coastal hills here. So you can see the scale of all the industry along the shoreline of Dalian Bay in the background, but lovely sunny day.
Are those mostly residential buildings there that we're seeing?
Yeah, we live in this part over here. So yeah, so this is residential, most of this. In amongst this, there's schools, there's shops, there's police station, fire station, all the sorts of things you'd expect in the area. But yeah, this is the tall buildings here are at this end are residential. If we go just off the shot to the left, there's sort of business area there. But this is residential at the moment. So
on the back side of that, these smaller buildings, is that some water feature that's around back there, that darker colored stuff?
I mean, we just caught the hill here. I think this is just probably some construction area actually at the moment.
Oh, okay.
So we're seeing this. I mean, I haven't really noticed too much of this here, but obviously, yeah, some smaller blocks. It's interesting is in real estate in China, people like despite all the high rise, and a lot of these are very heavily populated despite being new. This is all in the last 5 years, this development.
It looks like a Godzilla movie set. I'm just going to tell you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The
I mean, this
perfect
is
stopping grounds for some giant monster.
yeah. If we go to some other parts of Dalian, I mean, this here is just a mild. You can't really see because it's quite a hazy day, but there's high rise over here where my you see my mouse. There is so much of this housing, and this is the density. There's going to be easily a six-figure number of population just in this Donggang area of Dalian. I mean, it's so many people. But this is planned, so this has got a long-term plan. I'm sure we saw the right people in the government. We could see the plan, see what they're planning to do with all of this space. So, but this behind me, as I stood here taking this picture, is all the park. So it's protected land. So whilst there is development here, there's a huge amount of square kilometers of fully protected park here, which is lovely. So that's my sort of 3 hours. I've walked all the way along behind these blocks along the coast and round and up on the hill. So lovely afternoon. So yeah, so just obviously my chart's perhaps slightly different to your trend line. I've just had it sat here off these two candles at the near the top here of the correction, and it sort of butted up against it in the middle. So we sort of broke out through there. But the first sort of got a sort of 2 week sort of relabeled these with Heath doing some good work on his channel with some of the levels. So
those are the 2 week levels.
2 weeks. Yeah, some of these 2 weeks there and a weekly there, but we've just rejected straight off the first one at the moment. So be interesting to see if you take the lines away. Obviously, we're still chopping in this area. It looks nice because it broke above a line that a lot of people are watching. But if you just look at where we are, we have cleared this. If we could call this a swing high, I mean, it's arguable. It's almost just noise. But we've come back up here to this level. So if we can push up towards 51.7, that would look better for me. And then that looks like an area to retake when you look at where we are. Obviously, that's this swing high here. And then we got all the noise, as you said. We've got some supply here at around 53, and this sort of weekly levels up at 55. So
so the 2 week, I've got a daily Heath level that cuts right through 48,885 is that last daily level from 15th, 16th. That was the close on the 15th and the open on the 16th, which is right exactly at that 2 week level, pretty much. So
yeah, I mean, I'm at 49462, which came off the 2 week, just this candle here. So
okay. So you're a little bit higher. So yeah, you just picked the close that 2 week. Got it. That makes sense. So if you go back over to your left from the summertime.
Yeah, we've got some more noise here. Yeah. So we focus in on the recent bits. We can see we've come up and just tapped that at the moment. It's hard to call too much right now. It obviously looks better than it did, for sure.
It's starting. I mean, this is when you see this kind of this is kind of a rolling bottom. All right. So everybody's now familiar with rolling tops. You're getting kind of a rolling bottom where it's slowly, the lower lows are very marginally low. And then it's starting to get to a point where it's hitting basically a horizontal level that it's not going below.
I mean, this
that's right
like
at 45.5.
Lots of stopping people out with these pumps and fades and just keep higher and lower and just keep stopping everyone out.
But yeah, it's definitely starting to slow momentum to the downside. So what it needs to, if it's going to go back to the downside, just like a lot of times when you see the same kind of, when you run into resistance at the top side, you have to wick down normally, capture some fresh supply, and then you can blast through. And so the same thing would be on this. Yeah, you're going to get a bounce. And if it's going to take out the lows, it's probably going to bounce first, capture some new supply, and then head back down. But we'll see. Breakout confirmation in the upside would definitely be a relief. And a lot of people obviously were expecting us to be 10 times these prices right about now. But this is welcome to reality, not
mature markets.
opium land.
Yeah, mature markets, retail aren't going to come in now and pump this thing to the moon. I mean, there's an awful lot of capital on the other side of any move like that. So very different. Obviously, I tweeted out here and 10-year bounced off trend line support, S&P 500 back over support. So this was what I saw yesterday was the S&P 500 fell out of my channel, NASDAQ below weekly support, Bitcoin below weekly and monthly support, sentiment bearish. And then I can see why I was seeing a lot of traders saying this is a bear trap. You know, just had it. You can see, because are we going to see all these things do a trend reversal at the same time? Is there really a catalyst? I guess that's the essence of it. But obviously, a resumption down would not look pretty, and so it was. That's exactly what we got. If we look at the 8 hour, obviously we didn't get a lower low yesterday with all the sell pressure. We had some tech down like 8-9%. Things were getting very dicey at one point, but Bitcoin refused to make the lower low yesterday. It sort of held on. If we look at the S&P for yesterday, if it puts my line in, we came down and we tapped this weekly support. And we were down here having retested on this candle. And then we came down again. They think, oh, this doesn't look very good. And then straight back up. So by the daily close, we'd recovered this trend line. And if we zoom out, I just have that as a channel that goes back. You know, it's not the perfect channel, but it lines up when you go back to the COVID crash and you've got a touch of the top there and a touch of the bottom, and it found support here, and it's found support again for now. But obviously you can see, we talked about it before, this feels like it's running out of steam a little bit by the way it's been rolling back here. So, and you can put other lines in. I've had a look at them. None of them look overly great. So that's where I've left it for now. And if you look at the daily, we've held that smack on the line at the moment. So again, no trend change. I mean, the NASDAQ, you know, I'd flipped that red yesterday. You can see because we closed an 8 hour below it, and lo and behold, that's a weekly. Once again, we held weekly support. And equities have been doing that so much, just holding either the base of the channel or holding these weekly supports when we've come in. That's twice now. We've held this weekly, the NASDAQ. So it's interesting. The 10-year came to the same position based on my line. It came down and just tapped this bottom line. Again, it came in. Again, that goes back to July. We've been pushing upwards. Again, it was like just it bounced straight off there. You know, the day before yesterday. So all kind of interesting correlated yesterday. I was looking at all these things together, and I thought that's probably quite nice if you're looking for bear traps and things, you've actually got some correlation going on here. Are these things all going to fail at once? Because that usually makes you think, okay, that looks slightly more unlikely now. I can't see all these markets capitulating together, because it's not like Omicron or any of this other news is really giving us a massive catalyst at the moment. Everyone's looking for a COVID crash again, but everything's different. We haven't got a shortage of dollars fundamentally like we had in March 2020. In fact, we've got dollars everywhere, haven't we?
Well, yeah, that's the thing is somebody else posted, on Twitter, said, hey, we're nearing, we've only had, I guess a 6 month candle chart, which is like a really long chart. We only had 3 RSI readings this high. It was like 1929, and then the .com bubble, and now. And there very well could be a pretty severe correction. But the one comment I made was, well, yeah, but if you look at where the RSI is actually at on the 6 month, you could actually just about double from here still, and over the course of 6 months, on this long time frame before it rolls over. There's just so much. Like, what else are you going to be in? Like, are you going to sell all your equities and just sit there in dollars? Because the printing is slowing down, yes, to some degree, but or at least the taper is. But there's a lot of this money still has yet to make its way into the economy. That's the scary thing, is that while the effects are still, the effects are far yet from being over from all the printing that took place and all the assets. It hasn't made its way all the way down into the economy yet, into other assets. So it's going to take. It's like, what are you going to do? You're going to hold your dollar and let it continue to depreciate 10% on you, every year for the next 3 years, roughly, or it's like there's nowhere for money to go. There's too much money, and there's just nowhere else for it to go. Maybe
I saw Michael tweet something similar. Who said there's a lot of there's some data showing a lot of the money's not found its way into the economy yet, which would,
right.
If that does what goes where it's been going, which is into the stock market, then up we go. So
yeah.
It's this thing we talked about. People are calling tops all the time. That's really what they're trying to do, and it's just yeah. I mean, you can always see a rational explanation for a top, and then it's not the top. This is like what you learn. Certainly, the time I've been studying this a lot more, it's like full time, is seeing people are always calling tops and always calling bottoms. You really do need, I think, some confluence with loads of things to correlate before you're going to see like the original COVID crash, where this was a potentially a pandemic, big news. China doesn't lock down a whole province if there isn't a problem, etc., etc. That's looking like a high probability thing at that point. If it's what we've got at the moment, I'm not sure there's enough of a catalyst. And so we're seeing at the moment. No, who knows? Who knows next week? So that was sort of interesting yesterday. I was watching the market. And obviously, I've talked about Ethereum a lot here. Where we are is ETH BTC is just at this long term. This was this swing high weekly resistance on ETH BTC from 2018, and lo and behold, it's putting up a fight at the moment. And we've just bounced around in here. We've come up, we've come off a bit, we've come up again, we're coming off a little bit this week. It's fighting away. If we go in, zoom in, we can see it even more. We're right on this line now, having a fight. Obviously, good. I'm never so bothered with this coming back when Bitcoin's sort of up. That's ETH tends to catch up pretty quickly. When you look at this, it's still showing the strength. So we wait and see. Obviously, we haven't managed to get another close. Had the usual stop everybody out and then sell off originally when we got there, and then we're just seeing Bitcoin strength at the moment. So nothing much happening. Obviously, ETH, wherever we are. See, I've got a trend line here on this.
Another observation is that your swing high from May is also providing a bit of support. So you've got the swing high of May 2018 giving you resistance, and the swing high of May 2021 giving you support.
Yeah, absolutely, we have. Yeah.
So you're look at in that whole range for now. It's going to be interesting to see which way the market decides to take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, if you come back, if Bitcoin really runs, and I'm certainly not complaining about that. If we see that, I mean, it's ETH has been very, very strong relative to Bitcoin in this correction, but it's not healthy for crypto if Bitcoin keeps on selling. It's not where we want to be. So, obviously, ETH US dollar, we've been holding this trend line here. Tested it quite a few times. I added a little bit. I played some defense, added a bit back in on one of these retests. So we're back up above 4,000 at the moment, albeit, not overly strong today, but that's just today. So see, we've been watching this weekly. So it's where we are at the moment.
Do you happen to have good. Somebody? So we had a question about Matic and ADA from Abe on the chat here. Now, Matic is really strong today, up 11, almost 12%. And it's bounced back. It hit those 180 lows, and it just bounced really strong since then. I don't know. Yeah.
It's strong with Ethereum, and no surprise, obviously, based on what it is. So, So yeah, looking good.
Yeah, it's on a full-on breakout out of this pattern. It's consolidated here. I've got a little bit higher line, but yeah, so that the last few red weekly candles you have there, you can draw that as a bit of consolidation. Those 3 red weeklies, the last 3. And so that we broke to the upside of that, actually came back to test that kind of area, and then off we're going.
Yeah,
So yeah, Matic's
any
looking exceptionally strong.
resistance.
And the Cardano is the one that another one that they asked about. But I'm really close to finally picking up some Cardano. It looks like it's wanting to put a floor in around that 118 weekly level. So it's starting to want to break there too. There's a bunch of, but the problem is my issue with buying any altcoin right now.
My trade for Cardano, which was I got out up here. So it's is it going to pump again? So it's just waiting to see at the moment.
Yeah, and look, it's been a lot of time going sideways down at the bottom. Exactly. But yeah, I expect it to break. But my problem with buying any altcoins right now is until Bitcoin shows us some strength and wants to lead the way out of here, I don't really feel safe. Like, because the other possibility is Bitcoin sells off and we go back to the 30s, right? If we go back to the 30s or the 20s, even high 20s again, which I don't think is likely, but you know, we have to acknowledge the possibility, of course. Then altcoins are likely going to take quite the haircut on that move. And
if you're day trading in here, this is huge volatility on Matic.
Yeah,
but it's Matic, as you say, if we sell off, this thing's going to dump like crazy. So
yeah, and so that's for me. It's you know, I want to stay in Bitcoin or things that are really closely tied to Bitcoin or the majors, maybe Ethereum, and I don't want to be messing around too much with trying to play early breakouts on things like Cardano. But Cardano on my chart has given me the very first signs of bottoming on the USD chart specifically and wanting to break out. Let me look at the Bitcoin chart to answer the question. Yeah, both of them are starting to bottom for sure.
Even on my ETH chart, there's possibility because it's hanging around here where there is a bottom now.
But the problem is it going to pump? And so, you know, if it just kind of hangs out in this area, it's not a great trade. You need it to break back above those resistance levels and show you that it's going to have some movement to the other direction. Otherwise,
we've seen here it's had a few goes, then eventually it took off. So it's obviously when we got into the trade. So
I think Matic is definitely the one having to break out all the relative strength here recently. Matic is probably the one to be more active on at the moment.
Dogecoin on my, look at that for, don't know why I've got that on my list. I don't. There's certainly a triangle in this me, but dang. Again, holding. It's interesting. We're sort of looking at bottoms. It's holding here. So, any more signs we're at the bottom? But
and to answer your question, Abe, is anybody using ADA or their dApps on it? As far as actual activity, it's one of the higher chains out there. So there's a lot of real activity on it. But the reality is it's mostly development activity and test activity more so than it is real user activity. But just know that developers, you want to watch developer activity especially when you're trying to play in a super uber speculative market like crypto, and you're trying to get in front of adoption. The developers typically lead adoption, right? The more development activity there is, the more likely it is that you're going to have actual users using the platform. And so, if you look at the actual metrics, there have been days and moments in time when Cardano was the #1 chain in all of crypto as far as actual transactions going on. So that's interesting because it means there's a whole lot of development activity. So there's a lot of things that are obviously coming. So it's just a matter of watching to see that activity would give me, you know, this is why I continue to stay bullish on it. But you need real adoption after that, right? So the real adoption piece is the key.
People are always in a hurry, Brandon. That's been things take a long time, especially when you're starting from the start. It takes a very long time. And ETH didn't build up the DeFi community in a month. A lot of those projects, the sort of foundations were put in years ago, and then they've taken time to get them right. A lot of things have been refined, and then finally we've seen adoption, and we had DeFi summer and etc. And obviously some of those DeFi projects have been hammered in this correction as well. I mean, they're way down. The DPI ETH is a horrible chart. You know, it's just bled and bled. A lot of things have bled, but that's bled as well. So it's going to take some time. It's not like with Cardano either. You've got the, whilst there is a lot of YouTube presence, you haven't got like BSC had. You just got Binance can throw all its user base at it and stuff to get it off the ground straight away. And then they just ported everything from Ethereum pretty much anyway. So they weren't building anything different. So it's going to take time.
Exactly.
So obviously the metrics, as usual, we have got to our at 1.2, so we're at the 1% ETH burned now. It's actually been fairly quiet 7 days. We're down at 47% offset. So there's been some low gas around. I guess it's, perhaps there's a slowdown in NFTs and whatever, but we're perhaps just seeing a little bit of caution everywhere at the moment. There's been so much sell pressure. So these things are burned with activity. So you're seeing a little bit of caution perhaps at the moment. Obviously, the usual reminder, obviously, this is fee levels. We can see the fee numbers down. It was 48 million and 50 million, 32 million. So we can see it slowing down. The Bitcoin's dropped as well. So we've still got a big ratio difference.
Look at the mempool real fast on Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's
really light. Yeah, mempool's been down. It was super busy a couple weeks ago. It's real quiet right now because it's just this is a low volatility time of year period. So this is none of these metrics being down through the holidays. The U.S. holidays are surprising, really.
No, but obviously a little bit of news. Optimism took its whitelist off, so that's one of the big scaling solutions for Ethereum. So that's another piece of good news for Ethereum, and we're seeing this across the scaling solutions. We're also increasingly now seeing hard commitments from the exchanges to allow layer 2 to directly interface with the main centralized exchanges. So that's all good for adoption. As you'd expect, we are seeing a little bit of a continued, we've had a bit of downwards pressure on locked value on the layer 2s, which in this type of heavy correction, you would expect. Obviously, a reminder on layer 2s, you don't have to pay the layer 1 fees on Ethereum. So again, just the same reminders as before. You can use Hop, you can use various things, but you can move your money easily to layer 2 if you're into DeFi. And as before, read your guides on airdrops, get yourself using layer 2s, get yourself in position for some free money, because when it comes, it can be very valuable. I'm expecting some of the layer 2s that don't have tokens to launch them at some point. So you don't have to do much other than use them, which I've had several of them now, and they're lovely when they come. Just wake up one day and what on earth is this on my ETH wallet? Nice big lots of free money. So yeah, I mean, that's what I see for now. Crypto, I'm curious to see what happens next with Bitcoin at the moment. That's so you can see we've had a rejection off that first resistance. We really have to get out of here, I think, before this is going to look like anything other than a potential another fake out. So,
let me share something with you guys here real fast. Ken Stanfield. I don't know if you have Ken Stanfield's. So all the models, the things that people were all models were the rage a couple months ago, and now they're not the rage anymore. So I'm going to share a quick screenshot. So on you're curious where Bitcoin goes, I do want to highlight something because I think we're all thinking the exact same thing. We're all wondering where is the market going, because this has been a bit of a surprise, and it's more so not so much the models. Like, obviously, I'm going to highlight this. This is Ted's kind of composite model of all kinds of different models here, and Ken retweeted this out here recently that was just yesterday. But you can see, obviously, all the models had this huge peak coming in, late this year, early next year, whatever. But we've seen this continued selling. What's interesting to me, and I'm just going to highlight this, that Ken, I don't know where Ken got this information or how he came up with this exactly, but Ken's model has us coming all the way down to the low 40s by the end of the month, which is super fascinating because he put this out like early 2021, right? Like, and
Yep.
somehow detailed this. What's fascinating to me is if that were to play out, that would be the second half of a Wyckoff pattern. But anyway, point is, if you're into models, the hope is not completely gone. We've got Michael, Fair Free Digital, and Ken that both think that there's going to be a really strong pseudo blow off top kind of early next year. Now, I don't, again, I'm kind of anti blow off top, but I did want to highlight this. If you guys aren't following Ken Stanfield and his thoughts around this, but he's been talking a lot about this 3 peaks basically in this cycle anyway. So on the where does Bitcoin go from here? I don't think anybody knows. I certainly don't know for a certainty, but what's Heath tweeted the other day too, or I don't know if tweeted or said it in his live stream, but traditional price action analysis is winning, right? Over all these models, like the models obviously got blown up, but traditional price action is winning. And so, but I did want to quickly highlight that because I thought it was interesting that kind of Ken's model is not dead. And where he got this from, I'm just going to share this here because I think it is interesting. So now mine, I had this uptrend channel. We're out of the uptrend channel right now, and so I'm just going to leave it like that for now. But if you see what Ken had done is he noticed that in 2017 we had a big sell-off right about the same amount of time from having as 2013 peaked, and so you can kind of see artists like this peak and this peak are not too far off from this peak, and I think this peak are not too far off date-wise. I can't remember exactly how it all lines up, but if you go over here, fast forward to 2021, what's super fascinating to me is that the time from the sell-off, the first sell-off we had was right in line to almost to the day from the number of days from the halving to this peak, and then the big sell-off was almost exactly the number of days from the halving to the 2013 peak. And then you look over here, this last sell-off we had, it was a few days, so a difference between the halving of 2017 and the peak. The timing of this the second sell-off was almost within days of the last one. So what I'm trying to say is I don't think the run is over for Bitcoin as far as upside, but it's obviously clearly changing. We're not going to enter. I don't think we're going to have a blow off top period. I think it's going to be maybe it'll look something like a blow off top. But my point is, I think we're coming into a bottom, but I wouldn't get too excited about this little bit of, I'm on the log chart, so it looks different, price action here, because I can still see us, even Ken's model has it. I want to highlight some little notes that I have here. If this is a Wyckoff accumulation pattern, what you can possibly look for, and this was obviously a Wyckoff distribution, right? This was that schematic too, where you have 1, 2 peaks and then a lower high, more or less. Although this didn't give us, I thought it was going to have a much higher lower high, but nonetheless, this accumulation pattern, what you could be looking at is you see this trend line I have right here. You can see the ultimate bottom was right below that, and then this gave us like the best signal to get back in when we broke above that. I'm seeing similar things play out here, and what I've got is if we do break above here and then lose this quickly, I can see us riding, basically see how this price action rode that trend line all the way down, gave you that capitulation spring event and then back up. I can see us riding this trend line all the way down to the bottom. Maybe
that happens quite a lot, doesn't it? When you see things following the line, trying to, not sure if it's going to break down or break up, and it just follows the line down and down and down. We've seen on some of the crypto charts, it's gone on. This went, the one on the left there went on a long time, but gone on and on and on, just hugging the line. So entirely possible.
But yeah, you see what's interesting to me is if we were to take that trajectory, it would follow Ken's that model. The reason I brought it up is it's just fascinating to me. Not like anything. I'm not gonna go short at 53,000 because I think it's gonna do this or what. I'm not gonna short at 50, wherever this peak is right here. Right. So when people, I do want to highlight when I bring this stuff up and I say I don't use this for trading, I mean I don't use this for trading, right? So just because I'm fascinated to see if this initial bounce that we had here, maybe we put in a top right around there, and then we follow this line down. if that were to play out and be very, very close in just a general overall pattern, there's no way I'm going to short coming into 51,000 just blindly thinking that's going to happen, right? There's no way. But what I will be looking for is the same type of pattern of it breaks out strongly and then rolls over quickly and doesn't give us, it doesn't really confirm any new level of support. That would be a tell to me that we're headed back down for a little bit more. Another thing that, this type of thing that's fascinating to me, and what I'll use is the general analysis. You see this wick low that we had here. This was the liquidation low, and then we had a little bit of a capitulation sell off here, and the spring came in right above that level, right? So very well on this next sell off, if we were to get a bounce, we could have another capitulation event just below that. And now, of course, the other thing to keep in mind is remember, I was looking for this type of thing to play out here in September, and I thought this whole pattern was playing out again in September. And I said, okay, maybe it's actually going to be early October and really fake out the market before we get our bounce. Well, it bounced early. So this is my long-winded way of saying that what we don't know is are we in a pseudo September pattern right now where we make a quick bounce out of here. And the main difference, the tell, if you will, of the market between these two is this right here, this pop, you never really confirmed a support level and resumed. This, when it moved out of this same downtrend, right? This downtrend right here, downtrend and downtrend. The big difference was when it blasted out of this downtrend, it took back a significant level of resistance and then consolidated above it and bounced off of it a couple of times and gave us a really good, and so this didn't do that. This came up, hit resistance, and pretty much immediately rolled over with some small bounces on the way down, right? This did something very different, a huge breakout, held the level, and that was our entry right here, right? Back when we broke back above that area. So I'm looking for the same basic thing, right? If we were to get some strong price action out of here, come back, maybe we're underneath this, but we take, say, this price action and bounce off it a few times. When you break back above here, there is an actionable signal that, okay, we're probably headed up early as opposed to coming back down. But that's traditional TA though. So that has nothing to do with looking at patterns necessarily. I'm not necessarily trying to follow this exact fractal or anything else. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the behavior, the pattern of behavior. The pattern of behavior here is
breakout, retest, resumption in one form or another there, and you want the safer trade. You want the retest, and you want it to hold some significant support and give your trades a higher probability. And that's people are still, I see on Twitter, chasing momentum all over the place, and it's just really low probability trades, and particularly in this chop, there's so much commentary, people getting stopped everywhere.
Yeah, and that's you have to just be patient and wait for confirmation, right? Now that's the thing. This is this type of breakout here, you didn't get any good confirmation of a new support level holding that you could play off of, right? This breakout, you did. You got confirmation of support at 47.1, and when it resumed off of that, you knew you were buying with momentum as it came off of those highs through there. So the same thing is true here. We did break this little bit of downtrend that I have here to the upside. I don't know if we haven't made a higher high from this. Like you pointed out, we made a higher high off of this high, but we haven't yet made a higher high here. If we were to make a higher high coming back out of here, what you do have is a little bit of consolidation under resistance here. And this is possibly worth a scalp, but as Heath also pointed out recently, if you're going to play these against the trend scalps on these bounces, you have to know when to take profit and take profit quickly into these levels. So this has to be, if you're going to play something like this, probably even the take profit's got to be probably 51,000 even, right? And it's maybe a tight stop entry with a take profit up here at 51,000. So that likely will be my next potential stab at taking an entry. One last thing I do want to highlight is the 200. We've been right on the 200-day moving average, which you can see cutting through here. It's at 47.1 right now. We haven't made a meaningful curl over underneath it. We've closed below it, came back to it, closed below it. We got a resumption down here, which is a bit of a fake resumption. We never took out these lows, which I was really watching closely to see if we took out those lows. Never did. Yeah. You got a bounce. So the 200 has also been fairly well holding. So this has actually been for this is what they call the institutional moving average, right? This right here, from what I can tell in the West, there's been a lot of buying. Every time Bitcoin drops below the 200, I'm seeing lots of buying, especially on Coinbase, which is a really good sign that there are institutional style players buying up anything under the 200-day moving average. They've been buying. It's a lot of buying on Coinbase, which means that, again, companies, US based or more Western countries are using Coinbase to buy up these dips below the institutional moving average, the 200-day moving average. So just a few notes I have there on kind of the shorter term price action of Bitcoin. But yeah, for me, the trading doesn't really get interesting. This is pure scalping territory until we retake, these other moving averages. But the kind of the positive news is that we've been holding. We lost the 200 here pretty severely, which was a bit of a worry. And then we also lost the 200 here on that September sell-off, which was causing me extra grief. But we held the 120. So in the summer, we lost all three of my moving averages through all this sell-off here. So that was a bit of a disconcerting. But through all of this activity, we've held one or the other. We've held the 120 here, and now we look like we might be trying to hold the 200. So fascinating to see it all unfold for me. I would not be surprised if we got some more downside here toward the end of the year. It's very low liquidity coming into the end of the year. A lot of profit taking, a lot of tax loss harvesting, those type of things. So anybody who bought Bitcoin above here, right? If you're an institutional investor, if you bought Bitcoin in any of these supply zones up here, what you can do is sell your Bitcoin and immediately buy it back over here, and you've got some. Yep. So you're going to show,
yep.
Yeah, you're going to show a loss for any purchases that have happened up here above this price. If you sell it and immediately buy it back, what's going to happen is it says, say you bought it at 60,000 and you sell it today at 48,000, you're going to realize a $12,000 per coin loss, but then you're going to buy it right back. It's going to kind of reset. Now, if you're trying to get capital gains taxes, that's going to reset the timer on that. But a lot of these guys, they're going to want to take advantage of that tax loss. So a lot of this too is going to be tax loss harvesting selling coming in here to the end of the year. That's why I would be very cautious about a pop out of here, is because any weakness thereafter, you're going to have continuation, that tax loss harvesting type selling coming in potentially through the end of the year. So I would be very cautious about being overly bullish until we get to the first part of next year.
Yeah, people will be on holiday now, so maybe some of that's completed as well. I mean, this was one of my other tweets about this whole who's doing what and blame China. Was we've had portfolio rebalancing, and we've had every reason in the last 2 weeks as to why we're going up or down. But obviously, as you say, the market's complex and good. So, shall we move on with some?
Yeah.
Other bits and pieces before you'll be in the afternoon if we carry on too long.
Yeah, let's wrap up with your final. Yeah, you had some EV thoughts, I believe. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we had a few things, a few stories, bits and pieces here. So I'm going to get my screen organized. So just a few. There was a few general bits on China here, just bits of news, just because sometimes you may not see a lot of these things in the Western mainstream news. So obviously, I talked about the rationale behind this whole squeeze on these property developers in China. And, there's just some data here that confirms we are seeing home prices continue to fall in China, which was the intent of the government, was to reset the market and then to deflate the bubbles around the housing market. So this is just confirming 80% of cities saw new home price fall November. This has been going on since through the year. So we've seen quite significant reductions in property prices. And there's talk of structural change coming in China for long-term rental, more sort of social housing support. So people are not, all trying to speculate, if you like, on buying property, which has been the way in the West, certainly in the UK for my sort of adult life, has always been property prices go up. It's been the mantra. So people should always buy a property. Obviously means where my hometown in Bristol, property's very, very expensive relative to average earnings now. So just different policy in China. So if people I've seen some people sort of saying about the price of some of the shares in the property companies, but this was announced. This was a clear policy quite a long time ago now. So it makes you wonder who's holding real estate development companies when this is the government's policy, and then they're complaining about it. So that's just weird. I don't know what people think sometimes is in China when the government announces a particular direction, you tend to find that's what happens. So so that's just reinforcing what we've talked about. Obviously, what we've seen today and yesterday is limit up on a whole load of the property developers, because we've seen some more news from the government that there's been encouragement and support from the state banks on consolidation in the sector. Now, this translates into that, what I've talked about before, which is the controlled deleveraging of the real estate businesses that have got themselves into trouble in the cash crunch, which is effectively selling some of their developments. There's some in that picture I showed you of Donggang here. Evergrande have developments here, as do the other developments, that depending how those are owned and the state of these developments, that good quality developments should be sold off to raise cash. So this is what we've talked about. We saw before with Dalian and Wanda and other businesses, they get deleveraged in conjunction with the state banks. So, things just happen a little differently in China. So a few other bits and pieces news people may not have seen. So there's a lot of talk of sanctions and restrictions and things on China, but actually in the background, we can see the Shanghai London Stock Connect is being expanded. What China is doing here with this headline is there was some mainland people funneling funds through Hong Kong, and it was showing up as foreign investment when it's not. So what China and London particularly have been doing is opening up access to trade through London, through mainland equities, all part of opening up. So there are many more options opening in London to actually buy the shares in the mainland stock market. So quite a big opening up. Again, not really getting reported. There's a lot of negative headlines flying around. And a few other bits of news. Again, not seeing this particularly in mainstream media, but so zero tariffs coming for the least developed countries in quite a big long list of the least developed countries, certainly focus on Asia, which again is one of the first times I think in history that China's putting a level playing field in for countries to be able to trade with China and to develop, and prioritizing the least developed countries. Again, I think this is through the WTO and to do with the big trade deal that kicks in at the start of next year. It's again, it's a very significant piece of news for development in the world, but again, almost not covered. A couple of other just snippets people might find interesting. Obviously I like some of Tom's tweets and interact with him. He's a sort of almost like pro-China, but a more open China commentator. Huawei still leads the global telecom equipment market. So that may surprise some people who've seen all the headlines that Huawei is collapsing and whatever. What Huawei saw was a lot of negative in their handset business. But obviously a lot of the world is not buying this equipment and developing this equipment from either a developed place or from the Western makers. So the statistics still show Huawei's very profitable, growing, and leads the global telecoms equipment market. So again, a bit counter narrative. A little funny for you, because obviously you would have seen this one, Brandon, I'm sure, but Elizabeth Warren got this response to her message about stable coins posting risks, and somebody said, "You don't understand DeFi enough to pass the quiz on Coinbase to earn $2 in free DeFi." Elizabeth says, "Ain't no coming back from this." So that's pretty comical, really. But this unfortunately, and I don't think it's just in the US, obviously a lot of Western countries are struggling with regulation on crypto, but when you've got people who are so almost ignorant of the whole subject, it's quite difficult at times to see where we go with crypto. I guess Elizabeth Warren's getting a lot of heat because she's always claimed she stands up for people against the banking sector and all the rest of it. And there's been, I know he tweeted some memes as well saying, okay, but you're accused of insider trading and you're holding lots of shares in things that you're passing laws on. How is that good? So yeah, regulators getting a lot of heat. So it's obviously yeah.
Quite the fascinating.
Yeah, that's quite a takedown there. You don't get the $2 of free DeFi. So yeah, it's yeah. So so obviously I was going to talk a little bit about the EV market because I've talked about it before and Tesla. So just a few facts and figures for people if they're interested. I think Xiaopeng and NIO, obviously two of the major EV players in China, offer some value at the moment. We'll look at the charts in a minute, but they've both been hit down. NIO's down nearly 60% from its all-time high. The EV market in China and sort of NEVs, you know, new energy vehicles, is exploding. And China's the biggest auto market in the world by far now. So just to look at some facts and figures. So there's a prediction that NEV, so this includes some of the sort of more sort of battery heavy hybrid vehicles, but expects NEV sales to exceed 6 million next year in China. It's by far the biggest market for this type of vehicle now in the world. And there's a prediction of 5 million units of battery electric vehicles. So this is a lot. And obviously we know Tesla's production is nowhere near this type of number. You know, it's growing rapidly, but they can't supply 5 million units into China. And to look at the economy, we can see here 160,000 NEV related companies registered this year in China. So this is companies registered in China relating to this sector. So this is becoming a really significant part of the economy. And there's 409,000 apparently related companies registered in China now in this area. So this is like the supply chain building, if you like, for everything to do with EVs. So if we look at some more facts and figures, so Tesla Model Y, biggest selling premium SUV in China in November. So it came 23,000. We've got here obviously in Chinese, but we can figure out this is the Li 1 domestic SUV. And then we've got Mercedes, BMW, etc. here, Volvo. And look at the sales change here. These are the non-electric vehicles in this sector down year over year. So we've got the Li 1 at 190%. The Model Y wasn't on sale last year. This is what we're starting to see. We're starting to see these are not just bleeding. I mean, these are like bleeding out. These numbers, they're done. Some of these manufacturers, you start seeing 30%, 40%. And I have seen some year-on-year figures, which are awful for the big auto numbers in their biggest, most profitable market. So there are alarm bells must be everywhere in the boardrooms in those companies now. So if we look at the EV makers, so in November, BYD, so again, you know, build your dreams. Obviously, they make all sorts of vehicles, buses and construction vehicles, etc. A lot of cars. So their sales in November up 242% year on year. So we can see the orange line, you know, just up. So Geely, obviously the owner of Volvo, you know, I'm going to get some heat for my pronunciations if she's listening here, but, you know, up 137% year on year in EVs. This mini EV, this, you know, Hongguang mini EV, very popular cars, these little tiny EVs, some of which are down at $5,000 and very cheap city runarounds. Again, big sales, 45,000 units just in November. Li Auto, they make this huge, almost like US style SUV, great big hybrid vehicle, 13,000 vehicles, up 190% year on year. And then Xiaopeng, 15,000 units in November, up 270% year on year. And NIO, record 10,800 vehicles in November, up 106% year on year. So this for me is everything now is just exploding upwards. You can see all the numbers support the bull case for EVs. And it's still a relatively modest total percentage of the whole market. But there's talk we could see 30 to 40% of all vehicles being NEV shortly in China, which is phenomenal, given it was nowhere just a few years ago. So obviously I'm a big Tesla bull, and I have, a significant long-term position in Tesla. I'm not short-term trading Tesla. I know some people out there who show on YouTube and elsewhere they make a living short-term trading Tesla because it's so volatile. But I'm in Tesla now. We've got a price to sales ratio, just as a quick judgment, is 18.5 here. This was a little bit earlier today on FinViz here. So where are we with the growth of Shellpeng and NEO in comparison? Well, Shellpeng is currently at 14.2 price to sales. Sales quarter up 187%. So we actually got a lower price to sales. NEO's at 8.7. So again, lower price to sales than Tesla. Now, you might expect that. Tesla's also insanely profitable. Now, these are in the negative earnings per share. They're still loss making, but in that growth phase. And again, 116 quarter to quarter sales. Very strong. So let's have a look at the chart. So obviously Tesla, we've seen, I tweeted out 891 was it was basically where we were at the top of the last pump. So we've come in for a retest. So I added a little bit back that I'd sold up here just in my long-term bag at around 900 yesterday. So now you can come back a bit further. You had a slightly different trend line, but I've had these ones a long time down. Maybe come back in this zone. This has always been buy zone on this whole run in these bottom two lines. So, so Tesla's looking like an opportunity. I would still be very bullish Tesla with Gigafactory Texas coming online, with expansions in Shanghai, Berlin's coming online all next year. We then see the Cybertruck. We see there's potentially small car designed in China to come online in the next 2 years. And then you've got the semi-truck, seeing them out there in test, lots of video of them out and about being tested. Still really bullish long-term on Tesla, even at this, I think it's 900 billion at the moment, the valuation. So, but where are we on the charts with Shellpeng and NEO? So actually at support currently, hanging onto a uptrend line. Again, corrected pretty hard off the big pump we had end of last year. Where are we? 47% down. NEO was down even more. Again, look at this, pulled back into, this is a weekly green line, 58%, before a bit of a bounce today, actually, from yesterday. So if you're looking at these long term, I certainly don't know short term, we can always sell off. We've got a bit more support below. But 60%, 50% off, that looks pretty good if you're building long term bags in an area where there's huge growth.
Yeah,
And
so back when I was
NEO is selling cars in Europe now. We're seeing I think the 1,000th delivery was announced today in Norway, for example. So
back when I was day trading, NEO was a hot. I traded it probably 3 or 4 days a week. I'd be doing some trading in and out of NEO on that blast upward there. But yeah, it's fascinating that it's come back down 60%. I haven't been watching the charts on it, but I'm adding it to my stonks chart right now. I've got a list of stocks that I've been keeping an eye on, waiting for like this little bit of correction we've had here, really waiting for the top of crypto to rotate into. But I've got NEO's on my chart. It's near the top. And I just haven't done any chart work on it. But that one is one that I was watching a lot of. Do you watch any of the ancillary plays
cars as well? That's obviously my other. I've had a little wander around and had a look at them, and sat in one or two of them in the local shopping centre where they're all like the Tesla store. They're all sold in the shopping centre. So the new Shellpeng cars look lovely, and the Neos as well for family cars look absolutely great. And I see more and more of them around here in Dalian. And I've said before, this is historically oil and gas country, but there's the green number plate, the NEVs, more and more of them. This area's, there's a lot of people with modern cars in this area. I see more and more EVs. Obviously plenty of Teslas, but it's, to me, this is now past that the adoption cycle for technology. About you get the 1.5%, 2%, and then you get it just runs away. We're past that now, China with EVs. So I can just see explosive growth, and I see these makers, and I know some of the American commentators on YouTube have talked about it as well. The opportunity for them globally is huge because big auto is just fast asleep still. They're still talking about 2030. We might need some. You could see 30 to 40% of all cars NEV next year in China, and they're talking about 2030. You think, goodness. Demand in Europe's very high as well. So yeah, fascinating to see. Anyway, I actually think they may build some car plants in Europe. There was rumors of NIO in Poland, which have bounced around. I think we'll see that. I think we'll see them build some car plants in Eastern Europe and be wanting to produce locally. So sorry, Brandon, I cut you off, but
Oh, no problem. I was just commenting that, yeah, NIO is one I've had on my list for a long time. Thanks for bringing it back. It looks like a good opportunity. So I'm gonna be keeping an eye on this stuff some more in my. So I have a bag of like basically asymmetric bets that gets funded slowly as a small percentage of my regular contribution, and every once in a while, I look for an opportunity for something. I just go buy, a good portion of it and don't ever touch it. So I've got a little bit of NIO. That's where my Tesla is. I've got things like SPCE, Virgin Galactic, space, things like that. I buy the dip on a lot of those.
That one's speculative.
NIO, I've had NIO since it was like well below $10. So it's about time to add a little bit more to that bag, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's confirmation on the trend for sure now with EVs. I don't think that trend's going back, and I don't think General Motors can put them all in the crusher this time. As much as that Elizabeth Warren thing was embarrassing, I could use the Joe Biden talking to GM. That was unbelievably embarrassing, saying GM was leading the world in EVs. I mean, if you ever wanted to look up something where a politician is just completely lying based on contributions to their party, there it was right there. I mean, it was just all wrong from start to finish. And it's not like Tesla's a Chinese company or something else, so Joe Biden's got a reason to ignore the elephant in the room. It was so cringeworthy, almost extraordinary. And yeah, so I think change is coming. And I mean, I think Tesla's going to do amazingly well, but I think the Chinese see what's happening, and we can see, or there's state underpinnings and state support in China. There's a lot of it now for this EV industry, and if people can learn anything about China, if I can help at least somebody's listening out there, the one person who's still on the stream, when China mobilizes, they can mobilize the public and private sector together and mobilize everything in a direction, which is one of the reasons the economy's been so successful here. And we see that in this area. It's what obviously with China, I would say as an investor, my caveat is always I've got a sort of allocation for Chinese stocks that I'm not going to go past, and that's just because we just see this economic sort of competition in the world, and we still see sanctions, FUD, etc. So you've got to associate I guess a higher you're going to have some risk tolerance and understand there's some risk investing in these companies at the moment, because that economic landscape is changing all the time. And I don't know what will happen with EV makers, but if you look at this last week, we've seen sanctions on Xinjiang dressed up as something or other. The biggest product it impacts is solar panels, would you believe, when you dig through it all. So we've actually got a US sanction on solar panels. I have no idea why, but people could speculate about petrodollars and influence still, extraordinary. The EU just put tariffs on steel poles for making wind turbines just in the same week. It's just, when you get into politics, it's amazing what you see when you dig into it. It's just after just a week after the COP conference or whatever, there's a sanction on solar panels. Okay, interesting. So yeah, so you always got to have that in mind when you, at the moment, Western are investing in Chinese companies. There's definitely heightened risk there, I would say, and just manage your allocations carefully.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap up here. We got a question. People in China have less option not to follow orders. I'm going to skip that one. All right. So I did have a question here. I'm going to maybe close with the answer to this question, unless you had something else, Alan. There's a question here is, what's the reason we're facing the Wyckoffs this cycle? We didn't in the previous cycles. I think it's just, the market is maturing. It's getting larger. It's getting more liquid. So, but it's still highly unregulated. So, whereas apparently you see Wyckoff patterns playing out in stocks too, apparently, I've seen several examples of them. But so I think it's both a combination of it's not as regulated, so it's easier to manipulate, to be honest. And then the other part of it is it's a bigger market, more liquidity. And so now very large players that, have an interest in trying to, shape the direction of markets are going to be doing so. So, I don't have a good answer for you. I don't know. I just observe that it's happening, and I live with that reality is basically my answer.
All you can do. Yeah. I mean, you have to trade knowing that stuff's going to go on in the market, but you don't know why when these happens. And if you spend your whole time stressing over why, you're probably going to go a bit mad. So
Exactly.
You do
All right.
that.
I'm going to wrap up, Alan. Thanks for sharing. Any other closing thoughts?
No, I mean, thanks again for having me on. Hope somebody finds it useful, all these ramblings.
Yeah, so we've marked the top once again. So we went live right into the weekly 2-week resistance, and it's gonna turn around. So all right, guys, hope you got your shorts loaded. But all right, I'm gonna close with some Doge Wave. I'm gonna do a different song on Doge Wave here. We're gonna close on the opening track. Anyway, y'all take care.